where do you start when you realize I'm in the wrong column and I need to move?
So Tony Robbins taught me this many years ago. He says, that, the quality of our answers are directly related to the qualities of the questions that we ask. One of the ways that we like to reposition the offer, especially nowadays, a lot of people are sitting there thinking, if somebody's not doing business with me, it maybe has to do with my price and how do I adjust my price and so forth. And so it's very price focused. What we like to do is reframe it. If you can answer this one simple question, then what you're going to find is you've become more of a must have.
Hey everyone, this is Shama Hyder here, and you're watching Let's Take a Moment with Shama. And I hope you guys can see this. We're live streaming across platforms on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. So please leave your comments. I will check them later. I always do, and I try to respond to as many as possible. Last week, so many of you tuned in. We had thousands of folks from all over the world. And I think if anything now we feel a lot more united. I know I do with people all over the globe. So I think there's a shared camaraderie there. So why not this as well, right? And hopefully you guys are able to see this. Let me just check one little thing, and I'm going to introduce our guest of the day today as well. So there's, as you can imagine, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into live streaming like this, especially when it is across the board. And yeah, so I hope that you guys are able to watch this. And if you have any technical issues, go ahead and list those in the comments too. We'll do our best to iron them out next time. Now with me is someone very special today. His name is Charles Gaudet, Charlie as he is known to his friends, which I hope includes me. Charlie is one of the smartest people I know, and I'm realizing I have a lot of smart friends, Charlie. So I am so thrilled to have him because not only is Charlie an expert in helping create predictable profits for 7 to 8 figure entrepreneurs and agency owners. He's also, aside from being my friend, he's also my own business coach. So Charlie is who I turn to when I have questions, when I have challenges that I'm trying to solve, when I'm trying to figure out how to, how to really wrap my head around something. So Charlie, I am so glad to have you here with us today.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, Shama. And it's funny, because every time you and I have a discussion, I end up grabbing my notebook and I walk away from our discussions, with 3 to 5 pages of notes all the time. So I would have to say, you're one of the smartest people that I know as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know you know lots of smart people. Charlie and I have a lot of mutual friends, so as you can, I hope you can feel the mutual love, and hopefully it is pouring out to all of you watching right now. So the reason I wanted to have Charlie on board is, we've been talking a lot about recession proofing, and what's interesting, and I think it's so important to say this, Charlie, is we've been talking about this before the COVID pandemic, right?
Right.
This is something you've been talking about for a while now because as we know markets go through bull phases and bear phases and so forth, and I think one thing's for sure is that this time has changed a lot of how we do business and how we will continue to do business. In some ways it's accelerated, I think, what was inevitable, right, from an economic standpoint. So that's, I want to really talk to you, Charlie, today about and have you help my audience, who I love very much, and community globally, by the way, here. Just so you know, we have folks who tune in from France, Switzerland, the Middle East, Hong Kong. We just, all over the US. This is just a very global audience. And Charlie, I just hope maybe you could give us a little bit of your take right now on, what's happening right now, but also, what are some ways that businesses and brands can be recession proofing?
Sure. One of the first things that comes to mind, Shama, is when people think of a bad economy or a recession, the first word that often pops up is cutbacks,
Mhm.
right? And so companies are cutting back, consumers are cutting back, and so forth. And there was a study that was performed on March 31st by Business Insider. And what they found is that 50% of all consumers are cutting back on all their non-essential purchases. What's the one word that sticks out in that research report? They're cutting back 50% on the non-essential purchases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
non-essential.
not right, right. And so, what happens during a bad economy or a recession is that consumers, they're still spending money, whether it's B2B or B2C, they're still spending money, but they're becoming a lot more discerning with how they spend their money. And so the first things that they cut out are the non-essential items. And then they look at, so anything that's nice to have gets cut out. And then they look at their must-have items, and those will be the last to go. But when it comes time to it, they'll prioritize their must-haves in order of least importance to most important. So the same thing happened all the way back in 2008. When that crash happened, people got rid of their non-essentials, then eventually prioritized their must-haves. So today, regardless of whatever your business is in, it's a matter of turning your product or service into a top priority.
And you bring
Right?
up a
Into
really
a
good
must-have.
point, Charlie. And so all these people out there, if they're listening, they're like, well, I don't sell toilet paper or hand sanitizer or, things that I guess in the COVID-19 world seem very essential. What are some things for them to think about? What are some ways to take a business that might not be deemed as essential? It might be important, but not essential. And how do you recommend that they start to think about that and make that pivot?
So people always have money for things that are going to be most important to them. Whether that is to be richer or healthier or sexier or any number of those things. So when your buyer did business with you to begin with, they were looking for some sort of ultimate result, whatever that might be. And so how do you align your product or service to become more important than anything else that they were trying to do when to solve that problem? So, we see, if you look at in the B2B space, if you look at marketing agencies, for example, we know that a lot of companies have scaled back on paid advertising. Well, they do that because they see paid advertising as an expense. But if you were to reposition that offer to make it more essential, make what you do for them more essential, whether that's demonstrating an ROI, whether that's showing them where the industries have changed and how they can find the pot of gold in a different direction. Whether that is, did I mention tying in what you do to an ROI? Because, that's definitely something
Yes.
important. But, when you understand what the ultimate result is of your product and service, what it delivers, it's a matter of repositioning yourself to make sure that you are the most important, because we're not just competing with other competitors that are directly related to our industry. In a bad economy, what we're doing is we're competing for every single dollar that's out there. So how do you make yourself a must-have instead of a nice-to-have? Does that make sense? Did I answer your
Yeah,
question?
you did. You absolutely did. And so I think a lot of what you're saying is, how do you position your brand in a way that, like, if you're B2B, for example, right, that you're not positioning it as it's an expense, because that's what people cut back on. People cut back on
Yeah.
expenses. What I feel they don't cut back on is value, on investing, on their dreams, on the things
Yep.
that they want, right? They double down on those things. So I think it's about how do you move your business from a column of an expense column to can't
Yep.
can't work without this column, right? And so, our coaching is a good example of this. And Charlie, I didn't share this with you yet, but I think I will, and I'll do it publicly in front of everyone. So working with you, because, I wish that I'd done it so much sooner. I think it's one of those things where, like, you can't see the forest from the trees. a lot of times the things that you do with others, it's hard to be able to sometimes see that for yourself. And I love, working with you, I feel like is the ultimate mirror because it helps me see things. And I love it when you ask me things like, well, you did this for a client, how can you apply that to yourself? And I'm like, and those
Sure.
are good questions, right? Because I think that's very true. But it's funny because working with you in just the last however many months we've been working together, this year, given everything that's happening, our first quarter was actually more profitable. We had more revenue than our entire last year. So
Wow.
I thought you might enjoy that if I held on to that
I
as
love to hear
as
that.
a surprise, right? But it's true, and a lot of what it is it's sometimes it's being able to you're able to see things that I take for granted, right? And it's funny because in turn I can look at so many of my clients and say, I can't, you're taking this for granted. This is your moment. Like what an amazing opportunity you have in front of you right now. And so I think sometimes we all need to sort of step back and reassess. And so what tips do you have for someone who's right now saying, okay, I'm honest, right? I'm being honest with myself. I'm not in a must-have category. I'm in a nice-to-have category. What are the things that
Sure.
they need to really do? Whether it's start thinking about your audience, like where do you start when you realize I'm in the wrong column and I need to move?
So Tony Robbins taught me this many years ago. He says, that, the quality of our answers are directly related to the qualities of the questions that we ask.
Hmm.
And so you did ask a great question, by the way. But one of the ways that we like to reposition the offer, especially nowadays, a lot of people are sitting there thinking, if somebody's not doing business with me, it maybe has to do with my price and how do I adjust my price and so forth. And so it's very price focused. What we like to do is reframe it. If you can answer this one simple question, then what you're going to find is you've become more of a must-have. And that question is, how can you become the most expensive competitor in the industry and still have people lining up to do business with you?
Hmm.
And you see, Apple, in many ways, asked that question. And they released one of the most expensive smartphones in the entire industry back in the 2008 recession. And they had people lining up for blocks, spending the night, out in front of the stores, just waiting to get their hands on a very expensive smartphone because they understood what was really important to people at that very moment. And a lot of it had to do with user experience and how it made them feel when they had the product in their hands and so forth. So sometimes becoming an essential or becoming an important product isn't necessarily like, putting money in people's pockets. It could just be making them feel better than anything else that's available right now. So that question is, how do you become the most expensive competitor in the industry and still have people lining up to do business with you?
And I love that, Charlie. And I think what's really important to note here is that it's not, you both have to match, right? Value and perception. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes we have a hit or a miss. Sometimes you have, like our ideal clients, when I work with someone I get really excited about, is someone who has this steak but doesn't have the sizzle, right? And I think what's really
Sure.
important is that you need both those things. You need to have the value, the actual thing that you're putting out there, and you need to make sure that you are perceived as the best. And I think Apple is a great example of someone that's done both of these really well. Can you maybe share with us another example that's not Apple, that might not be an enterprise level, but might be a smaller, medium-sized business that you feel has done a really good job with this?
Sure. By the way, the screen is frozen on my end. Can you still hear me? I want to make sure it's still working. It could just be my computer.
Yeah, I can hear you. It says perfect streaming, but it looks like the screen is frozen on mine too. But hopefully, if the audio is good enough, it's still valuable, and we'll give it a second to clear off.
Okay, no problem. So if we want to talk about a small business, I think particularly in today's day and age, with coronavirus and the pandemic and whatnot, um, what's one of the biggest industries that you can think of right now that's been hit the hardest? What are, say, the top three?
Hospitality,
Yeah,
airlines, boy, travel, anything, I think, right? Restaurants, obviously.
sure. So let's take travel. So we have a client that's in the travel industry, and right now, I mean, you can't. Uh, Flying is limited to essential travel. A lot of borders are being closed and so forth. So, for all intents and purposes, there are travel agents across the board that are sitting on their hands saying there's nothing that we can do. I mean, people can't travel, they can't go on vacation, they can't fly internationally, there's nothing they can do. And so they sit still and they don't do anything. That's not the case for one of our clients. He's a tremendous individual. Oh, we still there? I notice I'm
Yeah,
only
we're
looking at
here.
myself
We're
right
here. No,
now.
you're
Okay.
good.
All right. One of our clients, tremendous individual, super smart entrepreneur like yourself, Shama. His name is Jurgen. He's CEO of Global Work and Travel. And he said, you know what? Here's the deal. Like, I fully understand that people can't travel right now. But what we can do is we can reposition our offer and we can give them something that they can look forward to. And so he repositioned all of his marketing and created these packages and these plans and so forth to give people something they can look forward to. And the result of that is that his North American offices are, I think last week, I think they had a historic sales week. The week before that, they had another historic sales week. Every
Wow.
week, one week after another, they continue to have historic sales weeks. And yet people can't even travel or go anywhere yet. But
Hmm.
they're he's selling them, and this is the important thing, right? Because we talked about how can you be really important. Well, right now, what people want to feel is, they want to feel like they have something to look forward to. They're stuck in quarantine. They're stuck in their home. They want something that they can look forward to, and they're willing to pay for that. So they'll pay for a vacation that's booked significantly down the road, where they can, at this point, because it logically makes sense that travel is significantly discounted, right? So the company, Global Work and Travel, is passing on their savings for the lowest rate they've ever had, while at the same time, um, you know, like I said, they're having these record highs. So it's a really exciting time for them to be in the travel industry. Now, granted, you know, I, they've had to make a lot of strategic moves,
Hmm.
and I'm sure, they'd love the borders to be open, but it's how you turn lemons into lemonade, right?
Yeah, and this is something you and I talk a lot about, Charlie, and I feel like this is the perfect time to explore that, right? How do you turn lemons into lemonade? And that's exactly what we're all dealing with right now. And I love that example where they've maybe slightly pivoted, but they're working off of this desire, right? It comes down to this desire, this emotion to say, when all this is over, I want to go do something fun, or it's something to look forward
Yeah.
to, and they're capitalizing on that, which I think is so smart. Can you think of another example that's like maybe a B2B example that's really doing well right now in terms of, and it could be one of your clients, just so I think the more, for me at least too, it helps with case studies, and so I think with the audience it helps when they hear stories like this, because I think it lets you break out of this box thinking, oh, but it's got to be only one way right now.
Sure. Well, I feel like, a great B2B example would be you, really. I mean,
I'll take it.
it,
That's true. I
you
mean,
know,
it,
I
it
mean,
really is.
but in many ways, I mean, when you look at the work that you've done with your clients, I mean, right now, again, you know, we've got people who are reacting. They're taking different
Mhm.
situations and they're reacting by immediately going to furloughs and cutbacks and everything else. And then you've got the other people who are taking action and they're asking themselves, how can we turn these lemons into lemonade? And several of your clients, they've had many of these moments. I mean, we worked on an example where I tapped into your brilliance for a client of ours, where we said, okay, here's the deal. This person is in, a B2C space, and they're selling a consumer product that is traditionally seen as very much a nice to have. How do we turn this moment into something that can generate demand? You're the one that came up with a wonderful hashtag that brought people together. So we showed, look, here's how we take a consumer product that is completely a nice to have. Let's reposition it into a product that becomes much more of a must have, because it taps into the emotion of taking people who are separated and bringing them together, which is something they really, really want. And they're really willing to pay for bringing them together. And the company got a nice surge in demand. So if we look at, you said, what's a great B2B example of somebody that's doing well? It's you, because you're helping these companies recognize the different moments and all the different moments in the companies that they may have overlooked, right? Same reason why we're working together, right? You're showing them the moments that they may have actually overlooked. And then, I mean, one of your clients alone, they've generated more leads, and I don't know if I can mention their name, but they've generated more leads in the last several weeks of working with you in an industry that should have been completely decimated than they otherwise would have, even in the good times. This is probably I hope I don't get a lot of hate mail for saying this, but for certain companies, this is like the best thing that could ever have happened to them. And yeah, and it really doesn't matter the industry,
That's
it's how you position it.
That's the amazing thing, Charlie, is that we have clients right now in so many different industries, and they're slaying it. I mean, they're doing really well, and I'm so proud of it. I think that there's a couple of things you have to have. One, I think you have to embrace this mentality of let's go big. And this client that you mentioned, when everything went crazy, he called me, and I remember taking that call, and I was like, oh man, like he's probably freaking out, right? Like literally has lost more than half his book of business. Like what, he's got all these employees. It's challenging, and he's the CEO, and he calls me and he goes, we got to double down. This is our moment. We got to go big. And I thought, this is amazing. So I think there's a couple of things. I think you have to first have the mindset for it. Then you have to get out of this mindset of things are, like cutting back this. I feel like the pandemic that we're really facing right now is this let's wait and see pandemic. There's two pandemics, and this is a mental one, right? Like let's wait and see. Let's wait. And that is, people miss so many opportunities when they approach things from a perspective of let's wait and see, because there's never a perfect time for anything. This is really a great time for a lot of things, right? This is how I like to say it. And so to be strategic in this time, to look out for your community, to provide value. I mean, the goodwill you build at this time too is just, it goes so much further, right, than in times of non-crisis. And so one, I think, is this mindset that you have to kind of get over this, and it's so funny. We've actually, in many ways, doubled our expenses, but we've also doubled our revenue, because we're doing things to help the business get better. Like, what tools do we need? Who do we need to work with? How do we, for me, it's very important to walk my talk. And I feel like I can't tell someone, oh, you should be doing this, if I'm not practicing it in my business. That doesn't feel authentic to me. And so much of what I share is what's true in the trenches for me, what I'm learning every day as an entrepreneur. And running my company. And so I think one, it's the mindset of not being in a place of let's wait and see, what's scary. You've got to be able to take some, like, you have to be able to tap into that entrepreneurial spirit and say, it's good to take. I started my company when I was 23. It was during the recession. It was a very challenging time. And I remember doing it because I wasn't, and we obviously were very successful. We grew 400% in our first year alone. I wasn't scared to fail because I thought, what's the worst that can happen? And And so many times I feel like when you've had success, when you've gotten bigger, that fear sets in. Oh, but I could lose certain things. And you lose that spirit of playfulness, of fun, of trying things, of saying, I'm going to take a chance on this. I'm going to take a chance on myself, my business. We're going to, like the travel company, great example of, how can I pivot? I mean, people are, let's face it, even though the industry is hurting, it's one of the most talked about things right now. Right? Like, here's your moment. Same thing with restaurants. Any industry that's hurting is in the news. And if it's in the news, you can jujitsu that to win. You can really be able to we have a client who does manufacturing, and he has become the poster child for talking about supply chains and how, should they be domestic? What do international ones look like? You know how much harder it would have been before all of this to get him in mainstream media, because it's a niche, right? But all of a sudden that niche is mainstream, which I love. So I think part of this is mindset. I think the other part is leadership. You need, I'm going to hold my fingers up, like the second part is leadership, where you need someone who isn't afraid to take those risks, who isn't telling their team, pull back, let's not, move any of the chess pieces. It's the people who are saying, how can we serve? How can we provide value? And I think you have to be strategic. I see, by the way, a lot of companies and stuff, they're giving away all the stuff, which is great, but you've got to think about, like, okay, but how are you serving? You start with your customers first. I think you look at, how do you serve your customer base? How do you build that loyalty? And this is your chance. It's amazing how pre-COVID, I would talk to so many clients, and one of their greatest concerns was customer loyalty and retention. And this is your moment. This is a moment people wait for to build that customer retention and so forth. So I feel like mindset's really important, leadership, and then execution. You do have a small window, and I think if you miss that window, it's gone. And then you wait.
Right.
It's just like, it's funny, I was talking to Patrick, my husband, about stocks, and he was like, man, I should have invested here. Like, I knew it and I didn't. I'm like, well, why didn't you? Right? Like, you totally should have. And so I think that's sort of the worst feeling to me is, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that differently. And I think so many people, when they come out of this, are going to look back and be like, I had that time. I should have taken that time to revamp my brand, to become, the most hygienic restaurant, to be the cleanest airline. That we could have taken this and really owned our category. And I think there's so many brands and businesses that are just completely missing out. Did you hear about the Neiman Marcus bankruptcy thing?
I did, and there's another one actually. There's one more. Another luxury retailer that just announced that they were going to go bankrupt as well.
And it's so sad, Charlie. And I've been talking about Neiman Marcus for a while. I wish someone would have tuned into these, because they had a moment for a long time, and even now, the problem, and I think this is a challenge with a lot of legacy brands, is they don't pivot to the audience they need to serve. Right? Neiman Marcus served a certain audience, but they completely alienated millennials. They alienated Gen Z. It was for a very different audience. Whereas Nordstrom, in comparison, has done a great job embracing that. Now, I know you have daughters, and I know wife who likes to shop as well. I know it's not your favorite thing, but I know you're familiar with the concept.
Right. Well, think about think about Nordstrom, to your point, right? And this is, a little bit off target, but when you think about Nordstrom, as you said, I love to shop, right? But I don't love to shop, but I continue to do business with Nordstrom because they took my market and they purchased the Trunk Club, right? So now I get these trunks that are shipped to me every month that have this clothes that I like, that, I'll grab clothes. This is it here. I've got this is from the Trunk Club. My jeans are from the Trunk Club, like everything that I have, right? And so then I ship it back. I don't have to shop. People are doing it for me. But now, the way that also applies to today's market, you brought up a really good point, and that is mindset. I truly believe that the what's going on right now in this pandemic is more of a mindset challenge than anything else out there. And so when you get your mindset right, which is always the mantra we continue to repeat is, this is the best opportunity for us to be in business. This is the best opportunity. This is the best opportunity. It's kind of like
Yes.
one of those things that, you know, if you're going to go out to buy a red car, everything you see are just red cars everywhere. And so when you continue to repeat that this is the best opportunity, you're going to find opportunities that you weren't able to uncover in other times. And Volvo, you know, when you start saying this is the best time for us to be in business, then you have the mindset of, okay, this really is a good time. Where's the opportunities? And then Volvo said, okay, so this really is one of the best times for us to be in business. So what is actually stopping people from doing business with us right now? And so you look at the service department and they said, well, people are concerned right now. They're concerned with coronavirus and all this other stuff. And they're not leaving their houses. So what can we do to earn their trust and their business? And they said, well, what if we offer a valet service? What if we offer to drive to their house, drop a loaner vehicle off at their house, take their Volvos, we'll cover the seats and the steering wheel in plastic, do all the work that they want to get done on their vehicles, then we'll drive it back to them, wipe it down with disinfectant, remove the plastic, and take off. And it's no disruption to their lives. And when we got that announcement, I wasn't even thinking of getting any work done to the vehicle. And I said to my wife, I'm like, hey, look at this. Look how easy it is.
Yeah.
We might as well go ahead and have the work done. And there's so many different opportunities. There's restaurants where they've pivoted from just a regular menu to saying, let's make this a little exciting and let's change up a menu and do family style meals. And
Yes.
I live on the seacoast in New Hampshire. There are more restaurant seats per capita than anywhere else in the world. And so I was on the phone with a restaurant owner recently, and I said, how is business doing for you right now? And he said, since we pivoted, since we started going to these family style meals, and they're sharing it on Facebook and being very aggressive, he said,
Yep.
our food revenue is the same, if not more, today as it was when we were in business. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so cool. There really is so much opportunity out there.
And it's interesting because I think on the consumer side, you know, we've been ordering in almost every day. I'm doing my best to support restaurants across the board. And we've discovered places that we didn't know before. Like, you know, we always talk about, we always want to go eat at these restaurants, try these places out in our community, and you don't get the chance or whatever. You stick to like, oh, where should we go? You go back to your regular spot, right? And so one of these places, and you're right, it's so smart. You know, they one of my favorite desserts is a souffle. I love a good chocolate souffle. In fact, one of my favorite places in Dallas, Rise, is closed right now, and I've been buying gift cards to support them. But I was just thinking, I wish they would do this. We have a restaurant here in Miami called Two Chefs, and these guys will send you a souffle that you can bake in your oven, right? It's in the little container. It's got the instructions, you know, tells you how to, and it's great. In 15 minutes, like I can have my favorite dessert. And it's so funny because Patrick said, I didn't know these guys are down the street, and like all this time they've never been on our radar, you know? Like I can't wait to go back and actually have this in the restaurant when it reopens. But I think it's one of these things. It's such a great opportunity to tell your story. And like, let's say you're even closed and you can't offer takeout or whatever. There's so many more ways you could be leveraging this time by telling your story, by building online capital, by helping your community. It is just endless. I'm part of another group on Facebook for Miami moms, and there are so many businesses right now that are delivering to your door. Like I thought one was brilliant, kids' toys, right? Like Science Toys, there's a little toy shop down, and I thought that was amazing. Like what parent wouldn't want something to keep their children occupied right now? I saw another one.
Sorry, I think there's a gap, especially though when you talk about kids' toys. When you look at the local toy shops, when they compare the toys to the kids' academic schedule, what they're learning. If they're learning about electricity, then pair the toys with, you know, there are toys where they could play with different circuit boards or whatnot. You know, if they're learning about the globe, different toys related to globe, or different toys that might be in, you know, other countries that they can bring in and share with the communities. that's stuff that parents would buy. They want to enrich the child's minds.
Absolutely, and all it takes is a little creativity. You know, what's funny is when Easter came around, and we have all these employees with kids, and I thought, man, this sucks. They're not going to celebrate Easter like they usually would. You know, let me make a basket. But my first thought was, I don't want to put this basket together, and I went into this group. And it was so cool that there were moms who were saying they're making Easter baskets and then, delivering it to your door.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really cool. Except, Charlie, would you believe they were sold out? They were so busy they were sold out. I ended up having to make my own baskets.
I believe it.
Which I thought that was
I believe
amazing
it.
because even if you are a stay-at-home mom right now, there's no there's something that you could be doing within your community right now to make money that you just wouldn't otherwise, right? Like that you that and I think also there's such an opportunity to build goodwill. And
Yeah.
My husband and Patrick and Charlie, I know you know him well, and you guys have been friends for a
He's
while.
awesome.
He is amazing. For those who don't know him and haven't had the opportunity to meet him, one of the things that I thought was interesting about Patrick when I first met him was that he didn't have any friends. He only had best friends. So like every guy friend he would introduce me to would take me to the side and be like, just so you know, I'm his best friend. And I was like, I've heard this a few times now. And it's because, he's amazing at building goodwill, I think, and being there for people when they need it. So he's terrible at responding to regular Facebook messages. Like you could send him a message and you won't get a return message in like 10 days. Like his message, it's just not, he's not good with those things. But like at this point, a couple of months ago, he put in an order for masks, for N95 masks. And he got his shipment yesterday. And rather than selling these masks, he sent a text to our entire neighborhood saying who needs these masks, and he's been delivering like a little neighborhood Santa all these masks. But what's really been interesting is he came home and he said, well, so-and-so has offered if we ever need notary services, so-and-so is happy to help, if we ever need a babysitter. And I'm like, wait a second, and it's because I think the natural inclination is people want to give, right? When they feel like they're getting, when they feel like it's reciprocity. And it just made me laugh because it was very sweet. It was sweet gestures. But he's managed to get to know our entire neighborhood in the span.
Yeah.
But this is such a great time to do things like that, to build that goodwill and build that community.
Well, here's something interesting that you brought up, right? So you actually brought up a few things, and remind me to talk about a barbershop after I'm done giving you this example. Okay. So one of the things that you brought up was this idea of, Patrick just, buying these N95 masks and really going out there to try to help as many people as possible. And that's just, that is Patrick's nature. He's always one, like you said, to be very giving and very supporting and, wants to help everybody. And he does it genuinely, very authentically, that he just wants to help. It's why everybody, like you said, comes around. They're like, oh, he's my best friend. I love the guy. I love the guy. Like, I honestly don't want to meet the person that doesn't like Patrick. I just can't imagine.
I haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's extraordinary. And that being said, one of the things that a gentleman named Buckminster Fuller discovered many, many, many years ago, and Bucky has had an indirect influence on my life. The reason why we've had these T-shirts made up for our company. It says "Together we're better," and we're always saying, "Together we're better." And you and I have said "Together we're better," and so forth. Is we've really learned to understand the power in that phrase. And Bucky discovered that if you add as much value as you can to somebody else's life, and what happens is they will unconsciously do whatever it can to help you survive. And he discovered that because in nature, the reason why the strongest survive is because the pack leader provides a safety for the other animals around them. So the other animals around them will combine to help the pack leader survive. And so I'm sure that you've even experienced yourself that there are some businesses, like you mentioned earlier, that you're going out of your way and you are donating and you are buying gift cards and you're doing everything that possible to help them survive, because their survival helps you live a wealthier, happier, whatever life that you have because of the value they bring to you. And so, I find it so funny that, way back in the day, it used to be this saying that, the purpose of a business is to increase shareholder value. Well, I haven't met a single person yet that has said, I can't wait to do business with this company in order to increase their shareholder value, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? We do business with other companies because of the value they bring back into our lives. And so we focus on how do we deliver more value. And if that continues to be our core focus, how do we continue to deliver more value, deliver more value, deliver more value? Like the question that we shared early in this presentation, how do you become the most expensive competitor in the industry and still have clients lining up to do business with you? It's because you've taken the focus off of price and you've brought it to value. And when you can create that relationship, you'll continue to thrive like Apple. Now, the barbershop. Can I tell you a little bit about a barbershop?
Yes. Tell me. Okay, wait, before you tell me about the barbershop, I have to connect these dots, because I think what you said is so important. It's understanding the value, and you have to be, I use the word shrewd carefully, but I think there is a certain shrewdness about making business decisions, and I don't use it in a negative sense. I think it's all use clever if you prefer. But look at what Shake Shack did. Shake Shack got 10 million.
Brilliant.
And they said, we're returning the 10 million. Okay. The publicity Shake Shack got for that move is well over worth 1 billion. They could not have bought enough, right, Super Bowl ads to get that kind of PR. And people saying, can't wait to shelter at Shake Shack. Shelter at Shake Shack. You're welcome, guys. Run with it, right? Like, it is just amazing. And so to me, this is where, like, if they had thought about someone, and this was mindset, leadership, right? Being able to take that. They're a huge organization. While 10 million is a lot, it's 10 million. But someone in that organization was smart, and they said, we keep this. We're going to get crucified like Roots Chris over here, right? We're going to get a really hard time. It's going to come out, but we return it. We get in front of it. We're proactive. We use this moment, and all of a sudden, the press we get will be, because let's face it, Shake Shack probably pays 10 million for 2 ads, for 2 television ads, right? Maybe 1 television ad amplified. That's like, that's some of their marketing budget right there that they leveraged. And so it's just very smart. But I now want to hear your barbershop story, but I had to connect those dots.
Well, the barbershop story I'm gonna get to in a minute. This is our big open loop, right? We're gonna get to the barbershop story. No, but here's something. You brought up a Shake Shack, right? Well, here's the funny thing is, where is your car right now? Where's your car?
You want the honest story?
Well, I was hoping you'd say it's in your garage, but I'm guessing not, right?
No, it's not in my garage. And I'll tell you why, Charlie. This is the story of why Shama does not have a car right now. Are you ready for this? So I have a car. I love my car. I've had my car for many years. I drive an Audi A7. I love that car. Patrick comes home one day and says, babe, I'm thinking we should get you another car. And I'm like, why? I love my car. Well, turns out one of his employees is taking public transportation because he has lost his car somehow. I don't know. This guy's one of these guys who's got a lot going on in his life. So he no longer has a car. He's taking public transportation. He has 2 children. And this is when the warehouse was still open. And because they're considered an essential business, they create a lot of, badge holders and stuff for hospitals and so forth. And so this guy was taking public transportation and then coming into the office. And Patrick said, I got to give him a car. I can't risk him getting sick, him getting his family sick, him getting my employees sick. So he literally came home, took my keys, said, say bye. And so I don't have a car, Charlie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, St. Patrick strikes again. No, it was very sweet. We were talking about it was eventually going to get another car. It had been a few years, and as our family grows, it made more sense. But anyways, I guess, he thought this is his moment. She doesn't need the car right now. I might as well. So I am glad it's being put to good use. But that's the honest story for where my car is right now.
He is amazing, that guy. I tell you. well, for most people, their cars are in the garage,
Right.
right? And so they're not being driven. And so as a result of that, the car insurance companies are, they're loving it because fewer accidents, the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got an email from Progressive Insurance yesterday, and they said in order to help people out, yada, 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 they have put together this massive fund, and they are going to just automatically credit people 20% off their um, car insurance, and they're just going to give us all that as a credit. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a cool company. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to click a link. You don't have to do whatever. They just said, you know what? We just want to help. We're going to give everybody a 20% discount, or not discount. I'm sorry. We're going to credit everybody 20%, whatever it was. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, how cool is that? And, you're big on creating these moments. That's a moment that I feel that is being underutilized, because
Absolutely.
when I tell other companies what Progressive is doing for me, they get FOMO. They're like, why isn't my car insurance company
Right.
doing this for me? That is crazy.
And here's where it's really clever, Charlie, because how long do you think it would have taken for people to turn and say, "Wait a second, I'm not driving my car. So why am I keeping my insurance and why is my insurance still charging me the same amount?" Right? This is the Shake
Right.
Shack thing. They got ahead of it. They knew, and this could have been a bad PR bad. Like this could have sucked for them if people started calling Geico and calling Progressive and calling these guys and saying, "Listen, where's my money? I'm not, I'll either cancel, I'll reinstate it, right? I'll buy insurance again." This is also a great
Yep.
opportunity for any competitors in the space. That is one of the by the way, did you know that of all the companies that spend money on advertising and marketing, the top highest company, the industry is insurance? Insurance sends, like car insurance, spends more money advertising and trying to get customers. They spend more on customer acquisition than any other industry. Here's their chance
I
to
wasn't aware of
steal
that. That's
market
fascinating.
share. Because guess what? People are canceling, people are pausing it, right? These guys are getting ahead of it. They're giving you an incentive, they're using that press. But what a great opportunity to say, guess what? You switch now, don't pay while all this is going on.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about the barbershop.
Amazing.
I'm like dying to hear about this barbershop story, Charlie.
But one of the things, because we when we started this conversation, we said that how can you turn lemons into lemonade?
Yes.
We say this all the time. This could be the best time in the world for you to be in business, and it's not something that I just made up. I mean, in my book, in the first chapter, I talk about how I love a bad economy. Like it really is a situation you turn lemons into lemonades, and so I get challenged all the time, and they're like, well, what would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation? How could you make this work? How could you make that work? And so, it's been great coming up with a bunch of these creative solutions. And so, one of the more recent ones, it was actually having a conversation with my 13-year-old son. And so he said to me, Dad, what about a barber shop? I mean, because it's not
He's so
like,
smart.
you can, right? But he's like, well, it's not like you can cut people's, hair right now. And it's not like you can pack, there's only so many like different products, I guess, that, like hair gels and stuff you could sell. Like, what is it that you could do? And so I'm going to readily admit that it wasn't something that I had an answer for, like boom, let's go. But after thinking about it for a few, I was like, no, you know what? I've got the answer. We're stuck at home, and we're, for most of us, aren't able to cut our hair. So we've got these things. You've seen the memes and the videos of Corona cuts, right?
Yeah, bowl cuts. Yeah.
Yeah. My 13-year-old son was actually the one who cut my hair.
He did
If you
a
could
good
believe that
job.
one. I think he did all right. I think he
Yeah,
did all right. And he actually still keeps in contact. Both he and I, our barbers become our friend. And we kind of like
that's
text him
cute.
back and forth and show him photos. But here's the thing, right? Um, the barber technically could have sold a Corona cut package. He could have sold a package that would have included like what is it, like a, what do you call it, a Norel or something like that, the hair clipper. So he could have
Mm-hmm.
sold hair clippers, products, and then done regular Zoom calls walking through, here's how
Yeah.
to cut this style of hair. You know, we could have done a Zoom call with the barber where the barber could have walked my son or my wife through how to cut my hair, right? Which would have been something that still continues to keep them relevant, and would have just been, you know, a different way to generate revenue and keep things exciting. Um, so, you know, I had a conversation recently with somebody as well, restaurant in my local area. I wanted, I swiped this idea actually from somebody, my brother-in-law, who shared this conversation with my wife. You know, this is a very high-end restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and so one of the things, my wife cooks all the time, and right now she's getting to the point where she's like, "Oh, I just want something new." So the high-end restaurant can turn around and they can take all the raw ingredients, put it into a giant bag, you know, sell the bag of raw ingredients. They drop it off in everybody's home, and then they do a giant Zoom call. And the chef, high-end chef that you normally wouldn't get access to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, regularly, will walk you through. Here's all your ingredients. Let's prepare this gorgeous meal all together. Keeps the
Yeah.
restaurant relevant, keeps money coming in, and makes it exciting.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny about that, Charlie? And I love both the examples. I've actually seen someone offer virtual barbershop services, like they'll walk someone else through cutting hair, which I think
I
is
love that.
awesome. And let me tell you what we're doing with another client, which I'm so excited about. And you would think like, how is this even? You know, how are you even doing this? But they are an aesthetics. So it's a surgery center, but it's a training center. So it's a whole association, and they do training. Now, imagine it's very hands on training for medical professionals to learn how to inject Botox and whatnot, right? And what we're
Sure.
doing is we're helping them turn this and create a complete remote infrastructure to offer it online. Now, it's really neat. We're still working out all the details and whatnot in terms of, but figuring out the platform, all of this. But literally, what we're going to do is send these students dummies, mannequins, and saline filled syringes, which then they can
Yeah.
practice, and through the camera they'll get feedback from the doctor telling them, you know, how to change their technique and so forth. So it's really kind of interesting,
Wow.
like now you've taken something, you've been able to change it up, and now you've been able, you know, and it's really cool because now rather than, again, your moment, right, you're sitting at home, you're not practicing with your patients. What a great time to get your training in place, to get that certification you wanted. And so it's, to me, like, of course it's so smart. But yeah, and it, you know, and we're, and it's not, it's very it's really not expensive because you're sending them, you know, little tripods so they can put their phone, they can, and then they can position it so they don't even need, it's hands free, you can position it, and then they can show how they're injecting the dummy
Yeah.
literally, and the doctor can give them feedback on technique, and it's really cool. It's very similar to what you might do in, you know, a live class where you're injecting a human but someone's still giving you feedback, you know, by watching your
Yeah.
technique. And you, the lectures are all through this. So I just think it's such a great opportunity right now for so many businesses. The barbershop stuff too, I think that's so cool, right? You get this whole kit, cut your hair at home, and you get, you know, if you get some help, some camera help to say, okay, a little bit more like the, you know, hold it like this. That's I'm very, like, I don't think I've cut my hair in years, so I feel pretty good about that. And Patrick, again, so weird. He knows how to cut his own hair. Apparently, he said it was like the perks of growing up not wealthy. So he was. So he said, I've been cutting my own hair since I was about 8 years old. You know, so he. So
Wow.
yeah, so he's had. I mean, that's the thing. We've had fun with this. I think the best you can do, right, is keep your spirits and to find neat ways to serve people. In fact, what's one of his top selling products right now is a little badge buddy that says essential employee. So you can add that to your badge. So when you're out and about, people are like, oh, okay, cool. Like, all right, this is an essential employee. They know that you are out here, and it's because you're working. So I think
Yeah.
that's pretty neat. And yeah, like, we've both just been i- just sharing, our whatever we can with the community, being able to turn lemons into lemonade. I think it applies so much to professional and personal right now, right? It's not
Yeah.
just I think you could be very upset at any of these things about letting a 13-year-old cut your hair, but instead, and I would venture to say you have a better relationship with your barber because of you wouldn't necessarily have this kind of, you know, perhaps text transaction, chat in
Yeah.
non-COVID times. So it's interesting. I think we start to see people as more human too, which is always nice. So, anyways, thank you
You
so
know,
much, Charlie.
one thing.
Add away.
Sorry, well, I just want to bring up one quick thing. One quick thing. You mentioned mindset, right? I think the most important book that anybody could read right now, if they want to figure out how do I improve my mindset, is a book by a gentleman named Viktor Frankl, Frankl. And the name of the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. Uh,
Great book.
if a phenomenal book. I think very relevant in today's world. Highly recommended for people who are trying to figure out, how do I work on my mindset in today's day. So I just wanted to add that, Shama.
And you know what? You answered one of the questions we had, Charlie. Someone asked, what book would you recommend right now? So that was a great idea for a book. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining us on Let's Take a Moment. Thanks to all of you guys out there watching. Again, leave your comments. If you have questions for Charlie and I, leave them. We will peruse them later. We'll do our best to answer. And then I will see you guys next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here. Hope you tune in. Have a great day. Stay safe.